Danny watches a lot of television and movies. John does not. Listen in as she tells him about what she's watching, and he tries to make sense of it all. Welcome to Watching My Stories with Danny and John.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
I'm still Danny.
Oh, and I'm John. Wait.
This is Watching My Stories.
Yes, I'm John.
This is part 2. We're going to talk about just television now. So if you wanted to hear what I thought of movies, obviously go back to part 1.
It's part duh.
Boof. Okay.
You boof.
So we're going to start off with a couple comedy specials that I watched this past week or so.
Okay.
The first is Pete Davidson, Alive in New York.
Okay.
And the second is Taylor Tomlinson, Quarter Life Crisis.
Okay.
So I'm talking about them together because they're both these young millennials that, what is Pete? Is he 25 yet? So Taylor's 25.
I think Pete's probably
25, 26.
Somewhere in there.
He could be older too. He's been around he was so young when he started that it's like.
I want to say he's like 28, but I could be wrong.
I'm going to look it up.
You should look it up.
Okay.
But don't.
Text amongst yourselves.
Don't text amongst yourselves.
Is that what I said?
Yes.
I said talk amongst yourselves.
Oh, maybe that's why we didn't understand it.
Oh, no. 93.
Okay. 27.
Okay. Anyway, so these are they were very two different stand-ups, obviously. But being about the same age, I kind of wanted to, talk about them together. So
Okay.
Pete's stand-up is very Pete. He's adorable. I am a fan of his. But it's a little darker, obviously. It's a little more very him, right? So he's talking about his life, his stuff. There's a very interesting section when he gets to the whole Ariana Grande thing, which was interesting. I mean, he goes there. So, it's for me, it was entertaining. It was not laugh out loud. It was kind of a grin on my face the whole time. Maybe I, had a few chuckles here and there, but
like I am with Mark Maron.
Yeah, it was more of I just like him, and it's not like it wasn't funny. It's just not that kind of humor, right? I mean, to me at least. Of course he's like, at the end he's like, okay, just a few 9/11 jokes and then I'm out of here.
Oh man.
So then he's like, I'm allowed to because
he is. He totally is.
Yeah.
It just amazes me that he does that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
he tells a lot of stories about his dad because I guess he's been doing a documentary trying to learn more about his dad. And so he talked to a bunch of friends and he learned a whole bunch of stuff about his dad that he never knew before.
Okay. For those that don't know, Pete's dad was killed in 9/11.
Yeah, he was a fireman.
Yes.
So again, he's just funny when he does his little chuckle when he's telling something. I really do. I adore him. I think he's a sweetheart, and so again, I think you have to like him in order to sit through it. I think if you don't, or if you don't get, I think I'm getting to the age now where I can say if you don't get that generation, you might have a problem. You know what I mean?
There's the old woman in the corner.
I know. I'm close. I'm teetering on not being able to, but I still can hang in there for now.
Well, once you finally land on this side, I'm here for you because I'm the old man in the corner.
I'm going to fight it.
Okay.
So then on the flip side, so Pete's stand-up Alive in New York is on Netflix.
And I do want to say one more thing. We did watch Pete's Hot Ones this week as well.
Yeah. It was a great Hot Ones.
So I like Pete as well. His humor, so I get it. I get him, and I like his humor. But I have a whole new respect for the dude because he went through something in this episode of Hot Ones. I mean,
yeah. So first off, if you don't know what Hot Ones is, it's now I think on like True TV or something. But the original show is on YouTube. I think they've done like 200 episodes.
Yeah,
so
they've had like a who's who.
Everyone has been on the show.
It's amazing the people he's gotten.
What this guy does is he has 10 wings, and they start with a very mild sauce, and they get increasing to what I can only imagine is a ridiculous. It's like
hottest,
millions of Scoville.
It's the hottest bottled sauce in the world.
Yeah. So they and this guy just asks questions for each wing that they do. He asks questions about their career and their life and all that sort of stuff. And it's a great show. He actually has really good questions.
Yeah, he's a decent interviewer.
Yeah, he has good questions. So Will Ferrell, Kristen Bell, Dax Shepard, I'm blanking. Jonas Brothers were on. Like, there's musicians, actors, comedians, everyone's on this. So it's on YouTube. You can go back and watch. Mm-hmm. They are releasing these episodes now on True TV, but it's like once a week. And so to get to their 200 episodes, it's easier to go on YouTube. Anyway, so this week, Pete Davidson was on the new one on YouTube.
Yeah.
And again, it was a great interview. He gives a lot of good information. But Pete has never really done hot stuff like that. And, so he was struggling.
He goes through something.
Yeah, it was not fun to watch, but it was fun to watch.
It was fun, a little bit uncomfortable,
yeah,
and very appreciative because he doesn't do well for most of it.
No, after the first one, he's already drinking his milk. So
after like the eighth one, it was very easy to compare him to Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Total Recall, where he ends up outside in the Martian atmosphere and his eyes are bugging out. It was very similar to that for me. So poor dude.
Yeah.
But props to him for doing it.
For sure. He went to the last. He didn't do the last dab, but he did eat the last one.
Yeah.
So again, I would never ever. But anyway, so Pete's stand-up Alive in New York is on Netflix. Mm-hmm. Taylor Tomlinson's is called Quarter Life Crisis. It's on Amazon. And I had never seen this chick before. I've never seen her comedy. Is it on Amazon? No, hers is also on Netflix, wasn't it?
I think so.
Sorry. It's on Netflix. So sorry. But, when you're sitting in Netflix and you sit on something and the little snippet comes up, her snippet came up and it was really funny. And I was like, okay, I'm going to watch that. And
so where did she come from? Because it's got to be incredibly difficult for a 25-year-old who's not like a Disney star or up.
So I'll tell you.
Okay, thank you.
She was on Last Comic Standing, I guess. I don't think she won, but she was on that show. But her whole life and a lot of her comedy, she grew up in a very, very, very crazy not crazy. I put that in there. A very, very religious family. She it was church all the time. She talks about her dad just, he reads his Bible every night. She abstained. She did abstain. She talks about it. She didn't lose her virginity until she says, until I was financially stable on my own. She's like, most kids have sex in a car that their parents bought or whatever. She goes, I had sex with an IKEA post, artwork that I bought myself. But what's great about her is you go into this going, she's 25, but she's not, because she did grow up in such a different way. She has a very different outlook. She still doesn't drink. She doesn't do drugs, all that sort of stuff. So she's got a very unique look at her friends, even her family, her kind of existence really at this point. And she throws in old references that I'm not sure all 25-year-olds get. Like, she references Pac-Man at one point, and I'm like, do all the kids know that? I don't know. But it helps me to relate because she has these older references. She does some movies that are older and things like that. So it's like, okay, I really, and her delivery's really good. So I guess I looked her up, of course, that's what I do. And I guess like her dad actually kind of started this comedy for her. Like, he signed the two of them up for some kind of church improv thing, and it started her on this whole path.
She took it and ran with it, huh?
Yeah. So it was very funny. I really, really enjoyed this whole stand-up.
Interesting.
I don't know where the cutoff is that maybe some people won't because of the age difference. But I really thought she was funny. It's a very interesting story. So again, a lot of her jokes involve her family or the way she grew up and how that has still influenced her in her life. And it's just different. It's a great different outlook to have and to see. And I'm watching this going, and again, I'm thinking back to Amy Schumer, who really, when she was, in her 20s and getting her start, her comedy was so, it was so different. It was about getting drunk, having sex, all that stuff, which was great because it was, she opened up a whole world of female comics, but a whole world to females who we were watching, relating with her and her stories. And we hadn't had like that voice out there that was really talking about the same things that we were doing,
Sure.
And so I'm just kind of, for whatever reason, I hold Amy Schumer up high because I feel like she did open up a lot of conversations for people,
sure,
with her stand up and then with her show and all that. But so when I was watching Taylor Tomlinson, I was thinking about Amy Schumer and I was like, we're going in such a different direction here. And again, I don't know if that's how this generation is, but it was definitely, about like trying online dating and, different. It was a different approach, but I really liked it. It was also very nice and fresh, and she's funny. She really is funny.
Okay.
I guess when I looked her up, she had put together a TV show like based on her upbringing, but it never got got picked up. So I hope big things for her. She was I enjoyed it.
Well, look, if you have a Netflix special by the age of 25,
right,
you're probably gonna go places.
I hope so. I really, you can tell she could act because the way she delivers things. So I hope she gets, in a bunch of stuff. So
something.
Yeah. So both Pete Davidson, Taylor Tomlinson, they're both on Netflix. Different, but still enjoyable.
Okay, good.
Okay. Next show I'm going to talk about was a docuseries on Netflix called The Trials of Gabriel Fernandez. I'm going to try and just get through this because it's way too heavy and too deep to get into. Okay. But the main story is in 2013, Gabriel was an 8-year-old boy who died at the hands of his mother and the mother's boyfriend. And the point of this show is that this was a systemic issue. This was something that the teachers had reported, that he was showing up to school beaten and burned and bruised, and the kid was telling them that he was beaten with a belt buckle and all that stuff. The teachers were reporting it to Child Services. There were a lot of cases where Child Services was made aware of this abuse. Child Services would show up. They would be told everything was fine, so they would leave. This boy was being locked up in a cabinet every single night. He was being fed dirty kitty litter to eat. He was being forced to put dresses on and being beaten every day of his life. And it's a really, really horrible story to hear what happened to this little boy. And you see pictures of him with a smile on his face still. But the point of the show is this was the first time where individual social workers were sued, were charged by the government. They were dropped eventually, but the point was, let's get the story out here as to what the system is, how the system is broken, how the government doesn't have the capabilities, the budgets, all of that to fully investigate a lot of these cases, how overworked social workers are with Child Services and how many cases they have and how they can't fully keep up. Now, I don't really excuse that for this case. They did not investigate. They did not go and deal with it correctly. And what was even worse was as soon as these trials were over, it happened again. This was all here in LA County. And it happened again. Like a 10-year-old boy was found dead. Same story. Lots of abuse, lots of everything. So it's happening and it's continuing to happen. And it's an important thing for people to see, in my opinion, because I think it's one of those things of don't rely on just making a phone call, and again, there's not a lot more you can, like the poor teacher, she's haunted still because she tried and she just feels horrible that nothing happened. But I don't know what you can do. You can't show up at the house but you gotta stay on things. I don't know.
No, I mean, not to cut you off.
Here's the thing too. This was 8 months of his life. He first lived with other family members. He lived with an uncle who was gay and his partner for the first 4 years of his life. Extremely happy, wonderful, loving people. The grandfather at some point decided he shouldn't be living with gay people, and then he went to live with the grandparents. And this mother had 2 or 3 other kids, and I guess they were getting welfare support, and so they decided they wanted more money. So she went to her parents and said, "We want my kid back." So for the 8 months that he lived with them is when he endured this torture and was killed. And it was the mother as well as the boyfriend. The other kids were never touched. It was just him. So during these 8 months, at any point, they could have obviously researched anything and talked to anyone and taken him out. But anyway, I'm trying not to get into it too much. It's just...
you fail.
I know. It's a very, very good series. It really shows you how things function and how things don't function. It really shows you maybe even what we need to be fighting for more on a local level to get funds to the right departments so that children are further protected. There's a definite lesson to be learned, and there's definite stories to be told. We've seen this happen often, unfortunately, but when it's as documented as this was, it's again one of those head scratchers. Long story short, the parents, the mom and the boyfriend, obviously they did get put away, so that's the good news.
They should be killed.
Well,
they should be put to death.
The boyfriend is on death row.
Good.
But California doesn't execute anymore.
Well, export them somewhere else where they do. Drive them to Texas. They'll take care of them.
If he weren't on death row, he wouldn't have lasted, right? If he were just in a general population, they would have gotten to him for hurting a kid.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he's protected in death row because they're basically solitary. So unfortunately,
I'd almost advocate taking him off death row.
California has the most people on death row in the country.
I'm not shocked by that.
I am, because we don't execute. So it's like, why are we bothering to keep putting people on death row? So we have the most people. We have the most.
Well, it's because we don't put them to death. So there's a backlash. We say, okay, you're.
But it was different about like we have the most prosecutions to death that per capita than any other state.
Well, yeah, California is actually very tough on sentencing. We don't have the death penalty here, so
we have the death. Well, Newsom just said we're not going to ever execute someone.
Okay, so we don't have. We have death sentencing, but we don't carry it out, right? So we are one of the tougher states when it comes to sentencing criminals. I find all of this very infuriating.
Yeah.
And about the only thing I can say is, we need to stop looking at things how we look at things. I know you're innocent until proven guilty, but I think we should experiment with when a woman comes forward and says she's been sexually assaulted by somebody, give her the benefit of the doubt, protect her, and go investigate the person, right? Same thing with child abuse. Don't rely on a phone call. Go take the kid out of the house. He has other people he can go stay with. He has grandparents. Mm-hmm. He has that original gay couple. Sorry, Grandpa, screw you. The kid's best years of his life were probably with that gay couple.
Right.
He can go stay somewhere. Maybe not every kid can, and that's, you got to deal with that. But take them out of the situation that's being questioned. And have the parents come in. Have the woman and the boyfriend come in and have pictures of the kid. Here's a burn. Where'd this come from? Here's this bruise. What happened here? Here's all this and this and this. And talk to him individually.
Well, they say he fell because they were asked all of that stuff, and they go, "Oh, he fell. He
fell
did
where?
This,
fell
whatever."
how? No, you can see.
Part of what they talk about in this is how the child services department is structured and what their goals are. And their goals are to keep the family together. That somehow studies have shown that that's the best thing, and how traumatic it is to take a child from a family.
100%. That's the best thing for 75% of the cases.
Sure.
If you want to stop those other 25%,
Right.
that's not the solution.
Right.
The trick here is to figure out which 25% that is. So if you take all of them, and eventually the 75% will be reunited with their family, and that's where they should be. And I'm making up percentages, I have no idea, but that 25% should never be with those people ever again.
Right.
Right? And if you do it differently, if you kind of, again, you're innocent until proven guilty, but if you investigate it through an abundance of caution, right, instead of keeping the kid in the system and making phone calls and maybe stop by, whatever, that you're going to continue to have this, because the parents are always going to say he fell. And it's always going to be glossed over, because these agencies don't have the people to do this.
Right.
So there's got to be sweeping changes to how we deal with this.
Well, and part of it is like teachers only have a certain thing that they can do, which is call this hotline. Like these people who are considered reporters of things, whatever the name is, and I'm blanking on it. That's what they can do. Again, because I'm sitting there going, well, when the kid shows up after missing two weeks of school with his hair has been pulled out and he's got scabs and splotches and burns and all of that, I'd call the police, have the police come to the school, talk to the kid, and hopefully figure something. But that's not the protocol, so it's like, again, we have to either empower teachers with more power, or we have to give more money, obviously, to these agencies so that these individuals are not spread so thin with so many
100%.
issues. So that's why these things out there, as difficult as it is to see, and we're spending so much time talking about it, it's worth watching, because people don't know that these are the struggles that these things are going through.
Sure.
So it's worth watching so that you can get that information. And if we're dealing with it here in LA, imagine what smaller towns have, or bigger places have. And I just wanted to say it's worth watching.
Okay.
It's very difficult to watch, but it is worth watching. Again, if you want to be informed.
Well, it's people have to stop looking at it as it's a societal problem. It's a problem with society. It is, but it's a problem for all of us. If you are going to sit there and talk about, whatever your political views are, you need to make it personal. Otherwise, it's going to continue to happen. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take sweeping changes.
Right.
We have to change how we deal with it from the very start.
Yes.
So.
Okay. R.I.P. Gabriel. That's all we'll say.
I don't know what you have after this, but I hope you don't want me to laugh.
It's complete opposite. I know.
Unbelievable.
Switching gears entirely is another Netflix show. Absurd, ridiculous show. Love is Blind.
Worst segue in human history.
I know. I didn't think about that when I was writing. I didn't really think I was going to get into that one that much. And you kept going. No, you got pretty deep into it. I was just trying to, I don't know, anger my way out of it. I don't know. Okay.
Go.
Okay, Love is Blind. Everyone's heard of this show at this point. It's everywhere. The couples are everywhere. I don't normally watch these types of shows. I have never seen an episode of The Bachelor. I don't watch 90 Day Fiancé or any of that sort of stuff. So I don't know why I was compelled to watch this. I had heard, I think, Casey Wilson talk about it on her podcast. I don't know. And so I started, and man, once you start, it was impossible for me to stop. So I think this was 10 episodes, plus they just had a reunion. This stupid setup is that there were like 10 guys, 10 girls. They were brought to this place. They are staying in opposite ends, and they would go into these pods, and there'd be a guy in one pod and a chick in another pod, and they can't see each other, and they would just talk to each other, and they would call these dates. And the point was, the experiment was, is love blind? And over a course of less than a week, some of these people in 4 days were saying I love you and proposing marriage. And once they proposed, the next day they could actually see each other. And then any couples, I think we ended up with, I don't know, 5, 6 couples that actually proposed in the pods without ever seeing each other. They were all then sent off to Mexico to a resort so that they could be together for like a week. So obviously some people were having sex, some people were not, some people were hitting it off, some were not. One chick was horrible in that she did not like the way her fiance looked once she saw him. And so she was not treating him well. So then, a week in the pods, a week in Mexico, then they went home. All these couples lived in Atlanta. They put everyone up in an apartment complex so that the couples would live together for 2 more weeks while they were planning their wedding. And during this time, they would meet each other's families. They would go to each other's homes to see how they lived, and continue to live together and whatever. And the point was that they would set up these weddings. They would get up to the altar, and then they would say, I do or I don't.
Did people actually get to the altar and say, I don't?
Everyone got to the altar, and yes, there were people who said, I don't at that point. There were 2. Yep.
Whoa.
There was one couple that didn't make it out of Mexico.
That's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Certainly before the altar. If you know you're going to say, I don't.
Yeah. Well, that was the whole point of the show, was that they were really kind of forced to go through the whole thing and then stop it at the altar.
That's crappy.
Yeah. So
that's crappy.
2 couples got married after 30 days, and 2 fell apart. We found out at the reunion that one of the 2 that fell apart, actually, they're still together. It was a huge blowout on the show, but they ended up coming back together, and they've been together. And this was all filmed like a year and a half ago. Right. So the 2 married couples have been together for over a year, have been married over a year. This other couple that got back together, they've been together for over a year. The one that didn't make it, obviously they still don't make it because she's a horrible person. So it was very interesting. And that's what I mean, is that once I started it, I was like, oh, I have to see if these people actually say they love each other. And then it's like, when they said they loved each other, I was like, oh my God, he's going to propose? Like, it was this absurd thing that I had to keep watching. I was like, oh, well, now they're going to get to see each other. I have to see their reaction when they see each other, and then it was like, oh, they're going to live together. Like, you could not stop watching because you wanted to see how this is going. And even at the altar, I was not certain. There were 2 couples, the 2 that got married, I thought one was not going to happen, and the other one I pretty much knew would. But I thought the other 2 that broke up, I knew one wasn't going to work, and I thought the other one was, and they didn't. They said, I don't. So it was still like, had no idea what was happening.
Wow. So the couple that said, I don't, was it just one of them or was it both of them?
2, no, the one couple with the horrible chick, he said yes.
He still said yes?
He said yes, and then she said no. Then
she saved his life.
Yeah. Well, she was 34, he was 24. So stupid. And then the other couple, she said yes first with like this huge speech and how wonderful he is and has made her life. And then, do you? And he just was crying. He's like, I don't. And she storms off, and there was this big thing. But they're the ones that are together now. So,
It just took him a while to come around.
Well, basically, he said in his speech when he said, I don't, he said, I just don't think it's right now. Like, he couldn't, during that month, she was very dramatic. She was kind of up and down and all that. And he was like, I'm just not certain you're really in this, And so he was so his speech was actually, I thought, very smart. So to see them together now, I'm actually happy about it. I like them together. I think they needed more time.
Sure, and that's great, but don't make her...
I know.
Don't put her in that position where she goes out through all that.
But that's the point of the show.
I understand that, but that's exactly what I hate about reality shows, is some otherwise really nice person puts themselves out there, goes through something, and then
I have
gets crapped
no sympathy for people who go on these shows. I have none. You put yourself in
You don't feel bad for her?
I don't. No, I don't. You know what you're getting into. This is the whole point of the show. And if you really think you can fall in love and marry someone in 30 days and be okay with it.
But they have.
Yeah, I still, There's only one of these couples that I actually am behind and think they will last forever. I don't think the others will.
Well, that's fine, but
you know, it was fun. It was a fun ride. And again, the whole stupid thing of like, is love blind? These were all pretty gorgeous people. So, you know, don't act like, you know, Shrek didn't come out from behind the thing and you're like, oh crap, what am I going to do? You know, that was kind of a bummer to me where, you know, oh, there was another couple that said I don't. And he said yes and she said no. And I think she will regret it for the rest of her life. They were, and this was a really strange thing because they seemed perfect. They were so in sync and so well made for each other. They never had sex. And she was kind of like, I don't normally go for blonde guys, but this guy was a wonderful guy, like a very wonderful guy. And on the reunion, you know, he's now in another relationship and she's like, I'm still single. And I'm just like, yeah, you're going to regret this. Cause he was, even when she said no and she left the wedding, her parents are there, his parents are there. This guy like turned around and he like gave this wonderful speech of, well, I love all of you for being here. And I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. Her mom goes, I love this guy. Like her mom could see that this guy was great. And I think this girl will never find someone like him again. I think she's, again, love is not blind because I think she was hung up on the attraction that, again, I don't know that you can force an attraction in 30 days. Well, in 2 weeks, really. But she was not willing to go there, but he was definitely a keeper and she's going to regret that. So yeah, there was another couple and it was, you know, it was weird. I don't know if they come out with another season, if I'll watch it. It was definitely kind of one of these things for me to see. Cause I've never watched anything like this, but it was very fast moving too, where I guess like The Bachelor, you know, it takes forever and he's with all these different, like I've never liked that concept, but this was fast moving enough where I kind of watched it in a weekend and, you know, it was fun. It was fun. Look at the stuff I watch. Like sometimes I need to watch something that's a little light and stupid, right? So
yeah, that's where I usually turn to like The Simpsons or Bob's Burgers or something instead of something
not for me.
Instead of something that still involves emotions and
there's no emotions. This is all just silliness.
That's just cold. I'm sorry. They're still people.
Not really.
We need to stop talking about this.
Yeah, let's move on.
Now you're making me mad.
That's Love is Blind. If anyone watched Ellen this week, she's obsessed with the show. She had the couples on. That was a lot of fun to watch them on there. But that's Love is Blind. That's the basic gist of it. It's just silliness. So, you know, it's on Netflix.
Except for the people who are devastated.
They moved on. It's just like having a dating someone for a few weeks. You move on, you know? Come on.
I think it's different when you get to an altar, you go through a spiel and you're fully in and the other person goes, nah. That's not just dating.
Oh, well.
I'm done.
Okay. Next show I want to talk about is a show I've talked about on here many times, and the season 2 just ended, so I have to talk about it again. It's called Kidding. This is the Jim Carrey show that I love more than anything.
Oh, and your new best friend.
So this show needs to be watched. They packed all 10 episodes into 5 weeks. They doubled up, which is never a good sign that they're looking for another season. I need them to have another season. This second season of Kidding was one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen. It was so amazing and beautiful and smart and traumatic and
sounds like it was very poignant too.
Poignant.
Yeah.
So I've talked about it before. The first season was a year after Jim Carrey is married to Judy Greer. It's Jeff and Jill. They lost one of their boys in a car accident. So we come in a year after. And it's only that year after that Jeff Pickles, who is basically like a Mr. Rogers, that he starts what?
Her name was Jill Pickles.
Okay. So
sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Please continue.
Yes. So, well, the last name is actually Piccolini or something like that. His character, his Mr. Rogers is Pickles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So throughout the first season, we see Jeff trying to start the grieving process for his son. It took him a year to even get to that point, because in his life, he had never really been allowed to. He had to be this Mr. Pickles and always be around for everyone else. So the first season was watching him go down this spiral because he didn't really understand what was happening to him, and he didn't understand his own feelings. It was a lovely season. It was again, I make it seem really deep, but it's done in this way that is hopeful still. It's very interesting. But the second season has been this real huge exploration of him and what's behind this. Why has he never been able to be in touch with his feelings? What happened in his childhood? What's the deal with his dad, who is Frank Langella? What's the deal with his sister, Catherine Keener, who's also going through a divorce? What has caused him to have this behavior where, you know, he's always helping everyone else and never has taken care of himself, or never really thought about himself even. So this exploration in the second season has been wonderful, beautiful, lots of songs. Like so he ran over at the end of last season, he ran over his ex-wife's new boyfriend, Justin Kirk, with his car. So this season we open up and he needs a liver, so Jeff Pickles decides to give him his liver, and the two of them are under. And again, it was one of these wonderful episodes where there's just all this song, and throughout these songs, like, Jeff Pickles is figuring out what's going on with him and what's happened to him, and all this stuff is just so it was helpful. You know what I mean? Like, it was almost like watching a therapy session of some sort. Like, it was, everyone could connect to something in here, and we've all gone through these different emotions. And seeing this man come together with his own emotions was also really amazing. As the season went on, then, man, there's this one episode that was an entire episode of just the Mr. Pickles show. So all the puppets were there. This whole side story where half the puppets are leaving because of Catherine Keener's character. So they had to kind of, it's Pickle Barrel Falls is the town where this show takes place, and half the characters were going to have to leave Pickle Barrel Falls. And this change of how many of these puppets were sad about having to leave their homes, and at the same time Jeff Pickles is being honest about he's getting a divorce, and he's explaining divorce to all these puppets, and they're talking about change and the change in life and how it can be good even if you don't know what's happening. And you go to the I don't know, and what's there, and I don't know, but maybe it's a good thing. And this half-hour show, I've watched 3 times now. It's something, if I had seen that, like, quote unquote, as a Mr. Rogers episode as a child, it would have done wonders for me. It did wonders for me when I was watching it at this age. It told me so much and gave me such insight into things. The way that they talked about everything, the way that Ariana Grande was on this episode. She played the Pickle Fairy, and the songs that they came up with in this show were gorgeous, and I was a mess. I was crying so hard because it was honestly hitting me in such a way. One of the lines that I can't shake from one of the songs was, and I'm gonna screw it up because I don't remember exactly, but it's something like, maybe getting up again is what falling down is for. And it has, like, I was such a mess when I just heard the one line, and that was one line out of a gorgeous song in the gorgeous episode of songs. Anyway, I want people to watch this show. It's only a half hour per episode. I'm making it sound really deep again, but it's not. It's very light. There are times you laugh. They submit it in the comedy category, which I do have an issue with. But it's light, but it's addressing these very real things that happen to people. You know, you lose a child, he grew up without a mother. We found out what happened to her this time. But he's a lovely character, this Jeff Pickles. He wants to help children, very much like what we know of Mr. Rogers. He wants to help his family and anyone he comes in contact with. But you feel for him because you know he's not really giving enough to himself either, and we saw that change a little bit this season. I just love it. I absolutely love it, and I have gone back and forth on some comments on Instagram because I've been posting enough about the show. That one of the puppeteers, Dan Garza, has commented back, and when I say it's beautiful, and he's come back and said that like they had a viewing party, and how they were affected and how much work they put into certain things. He's the puppeteer for the French baguette puppet called Ennui, which he has in the one episode I'm talking about. He has one of the most poignant moments in discussing the divorce, and he's the one who's super scared to leave Pickle Barrel Falls. It's been very interesting to hear how much they are all loving it too, and that's part of what I want to give everyone is just give this show a chance. It's on Showtime. You can go now and watch the first and second season. It's very easy viewing, and it's done so everyone's great. Jim Carrey is amazing in this. Catherine Keener, Frank Langella, Judy Greer, Justin Kirk. You can't go wrong with everyone that's in this. I want a third season. I don't want to finish this. I want to know what happens to these people next. I want to know the growth that happens after this, because Jeff Pickles deserves this next chapter, whatever it's going to be.
Right.
So I really want want people to go and watch, so that hopefully they'll come back with a third season. It's gosh. I don't know who's really come up with all of the little nuances of this show. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Good.
So you can tell everyone's putting their heart and soul into it.
Sure.
So that's Kidding. It's on Showtime. Definitely, please go back and watch, and let's all try and get a third season out of this.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
Next show you can participate in.
Yay.
Just the first season just ended this week.
Okay.
It's The Unicorn.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is one of those that I think we touched on real quickly before we were looking for something to watch. I had been watching The Unicorn from the first episode. I fell in love with it. And when you and I were looking for something, I think we were 10 episodes in. I started you watching it and you fell in love with it. So we caught up, and then now we've been able to watch it weekly. And the first season just ended.
Yep.
So again, great cast in this. Walter Goggins is the lead. Rob Corddry, Michaela Watkins. The kids are great.
Yeah.
Everyone's so good in this. But it's a stupid title. It's called The Unicorn. It started out with the theory that Walter Goggins' character, he is a widower, right? Men are widowers, right?
That's correct.
We come in a year after he's lost his wife. He has 2 daughters that he's raising, and his friends want him to start dating again, and they call him the Unicorn because they think that women look at widowers with children as this gettable prize because they obviously were good husbands and they're good fathers and blah blah blah.
Nice guy, good looking,
right,
and available because of a tragedy.
Right.
That's the Unicorn.
Right. This show hit me like a ton of bricks. I never really, again, it's on CBS, so I didn't expect much out of it. But man, it's so wonderful. It's super funny, but I'll tell you, I have cried quite a bit. Yeah. In this show, especially this last episode, because they don't make it funny all the time. He's missing his wife and the kids are missing their mother, and there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, I would say that, alternately to Kidding, which is in the comedy category, but probably should be a drama, because it has comedic moments. Yes. I would say that this is a comedy. With dramatic moments. And the dramatic moments are very... some of them are very impactful. Yeah. Yeah. I was surprised. Yeah. Right? Because it really is... It's a comedy. It's funny. Yeah. And there are some great comedians in this show. Yeah. And I didn't know him before this. I know he was in... what was it? What show was he in?
He's in all of Danny McBride's shows. So the baseball one, and
yeah, but okay. Well, whatever.
I think he was also in that Deadwood. I think
that's it. Yeah. That's where most people know him from. Yeah. And I obviously never saw that. So I didn't know of him, but he's really good.
Yeah.
And
super likable.
Very likable.
Super likable.
That's the thing about the show. Every character is even the irritating ones are very likable. Right?
Yeah.
So it's an easy watch. And it will sneak up on you with very impactful moments.
For sure.
That do hit.
Right.
Some of them hit suddenly and really hard.
Right. Like he does start to date during this first season, and then he dates some people that aren't right, and he dates some people that are right, but he realizes he's not ready yet.
He's not there yet.
The girls going through stuff. The Thanksgiving episode was really tough. But what's lovely about it is one, seeing a dad who's trying his hardest, again, #girldad, trying his hardest to raise these girls in the best way he can. But what I love is that there's 3 families in this show, and they all help each other out. It's that whole it takes a village thing. So if any of the kids need to be picked up, they all pitch in and pick up their each other's kids or watch each other's kids. And then in this last episode where the oldest girl is going to a dance, they are all there. They're getting her ready. They're figuring out how to do her hair, her makeup, whatever. They're all together and they're sending her off. And I loved that vision of them all taking the pictures. And because these families are, the wife who died was Jill. The 2 women were Jill's best friends. And so the husbands then, of course, became all best friends between the 3 husbands. And so the other 2 women have step in too. When the girls need to talk to a woman, these other friends are there. And to show this true family unit between these 3 families that sub in for each other. And how you can get through such a tragedy if you have these core friends that that really will help you no matter what. It's lovely. They're
so invested in each other. The families are that this last episode, the final episode of the season, the 2 mothers taking pictures of this of Walter Goggins' daughter.
Right.
They weren't really taking pictures because it's his daughter.
Right.
They're taking pictures of her because they're fully invested in her individually.
Right.
Right. She just means that much to them, and it's really sweet.
There's so many times where what I love about the show is that they haven't forgotten that these girls don't have their mother and he's missing his wife. Like, every once in a while, there'll be a full episode where maybe something doesn't really play into it. So then the next episode we come in and it's like, oh, wait a minute. Jill used to do that all the time. And we're like, oh yeah, that's why we're watching, so it's like, it's not in your face that's what they're struggling with, but it shows up in these moments, which you have to assume in that second year of losing someone, that's what happens. How do you make that potato casserole that she made for Thanksgiving every day? Oh, well, we got to find that recipe, and we can't do this. Or the daughter needs a bra. Well, who's gonna help with that? So it's these little moments of loveliness. And granted, it is funny. We laugh out loud.
Yep.
It is funny. All the families are funny. The kid's really funny. That little kid, I don't remember what his name was.
I don't either.
They give him some of the funniest things to say.
And he pulls them off, man.
Oh my God.
He's a good little dude for that stuff.
Yeah. And they ended it in a way that's so hopeful, that hopefully he met someone that he's really interested in. And so, CBS has got to renew this.
The storyline for this episode was it was Jill's birthday.
Yeah.
So on top of getting his daughter ready for
her first dance
at school, it's his wife's birthday, and he's in the cemetery,
right,
planting flowers and talking to his wife, and it's just and kind of the mayhem of his daughter getting ready and all that stuff with the backdrop of
it's her
birthday, and he's in the cemetery, and very personal, a private moment, and it's that part is not funny,
right?
It's very emotional, and he's really good at pulling both sides of that off.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. He's totally believable as he's welling up with tears in the cemetery. And then he goes home and gets his daughter ready and all the
Right.
mayhem that's going on and all that
Right.
stuff. And yeah, it's
a great show. It's a great show. And I hope people are watching it, and I hope CBS is going to renew it because now that it ended so early in the season, basically, we have a long way to go without it. And that's a bummer.
Well, I did see, for some reason, I saw a headline on USA Today about TV ratings. And one of the shows they mentioned was The Unicorn, which has been ticking up.
Oh, good.
So
it's worth it. I mean,
fingers crossed.
Again, if you just go to CBS and if you haven't watched it, I'm serious. Like, this is a sitcom, a network sitcom, worth watching for sure.
Yeah,
go back and watch it. I think everyone can get something out of this.
Absolutely,
it's really good. So,
I don't watch a lot of television, and this is a show I would miss.
Right, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, we're getting down to it. Next show I want to talk about is an HBO show called The Outsider. This just ended. This was based on a Stephen King novel. I'm going to go real quick on this one because it's a little too difficult to get into. But I want to talk about Cynthia Erivo. She's so good. I mean, she was nominated for an Oscar this year for Harriet.
Oh, okay.
So far, everything I've seen her in, she was in that Chris Hemsworth movie, Bad Times at
El Royale.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's in that. She's fantastic. She's a Broadway person, so of course I know how wonderful she sings. But she's been in a handful of things in the last year, and she's always a standout.
Okay.
And in this, she was a standout, and I am sure come Emmy time, she's going to be right there. Ben Mendelsohn is in this. Is there anyone else that people know? Oh, Mare Whittingham was in this, which again, I just love that she has stuck around so much, and that she always shows up in these little shows I watch, and then is fantastic. Like, she'll steal the scene.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
She's just so good.
She should. I would like to see her get her shot at carrying a show.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think she's that good.
She is. She's just, it has to be the right thing for her. I don't want her just like in some network thing, So anyway, this thing has to do with what they end up calling it El Coco. It's like a devil type spirit thing that inhabits people and feeds off of children. So it kills little children and it feeds off of them, and it ends up being like a doppelganger for someone. It has to scratch someone, and then it shapeshifts into that person and then kills a child, and then it ends up killing all the family members, and it's insane. It's and we unpacked this over 10 episodes, figuring out what actually had happened, because it started with Jason Bateman. He was the first doppelganger, and he ended up getting killed, and Ben Mendelsohn plays this cop in the town, and Cynthia Erivo's called in because she's like this kind of autistic photographic memory person that is also a detective, and so she's a PI, so she's called in to try and really figure this out. And as it unravels, it was great. The first 9 episodes were fantastic. Really figuring out what's going on here is just weird and whatever, and I'm just along for the ride. I'm not trying to guess anything. It's just kind of like, whatever, dude, tell me this weird story. Okay. So good. And so I was so excited for the last episode, and the first half of the episode was again fantastic. The energy level picked up, all this incredible action stuff was going on, people getting killed. It was just like, oh my God. But then the showdown with this El Coco was a letdown. I was expecting a huge thing to happen, and it was a letdown. But there's still this kind of dangling, mystery towards the end, and they aren't sure if there's going to be a second season. I guess someone's trying to write something. I know HBO will push it because that's what they do. They like to ruin good first seasons by bringing in a horrible second season. So we will see what happens with that. But even though I was disappointed by the last episode, I think it's worth watching. It was a very enjoyable story. It was an original story, which again, we're struggling for these days, but really good people. The entire Michael Imperioli was in this. No, wrong show. Sorry.
I was just going to say, he was just in Project Blue Book.
Oh, really?
Project Blue Book. Yes.
Oh, yeah. No, wrong show.
Okay.
Thinking about the next one I'm going to talk about. But everyone was great in this, and it was really well done and really good. So on HBO, called The Outsider, I think people would enjoy the telling of this story. It's one of those. It's just a cool story that was being told.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Last show I'm going to talk about just ended last night, which is why I was up until 10 o'clock. This was Lincoln Rhyme, The Hunt for the Bone Killer on NBC. This, it started out as a Friday night show, so NBC didn't have a lot of faith in it. If people saw the original movie, The Bone Collector, with Denzel Washington and Angelina Jolie, I loved that movie. It's based off of some books. So they did this whole, I think it was 10 episodes of this series starring Russell Hornsby, who I will watch in anything. He is so fantastic. I love him in everything he's done. So
what would I know him from?
I don't know that you would.
What would people? What's
he was in The Hate You Give. He's been in a few other shows that I've watched that always get canceled.
Okay.
I'm sure he's in even bigger stuff that right now I'm not even thinking about.
Okay.
But he made this show for me. Michael Imperioli is in this, and he's
Are
really
you
good.
sure?
Yes, I'm sure he's in this one. And so it felt like a replacement, not a replacement, but it felt like it was definitely a tip of the hat to Sherlock. Lincoln Rhyme, he in Hunting the Bone Collector, he's been. So Lincoln Rhyme is a super smart detective. In The Hunt for the Bone Collector, years prior, he had lost a battle against him and was rendered paralyzed from the neck down. So the Bone Collector kind of went away. He went away too. And then the show starts up with the Bone Collector kind of showing up again. Basically, they found that he had killed again. So
the Bone Collector is a serial killer?
Yes.
Okay.
There's this chick in the show, and honestly I didn't write her name down because I don't feel like she's very good, but in the movie it was Angelina Jolie. There's always this, he finds this cop that Lincoln Rhyme, that he believes is good, and says, you're going to be my eyes and ears. And so she wears like a camera and goes out and investigates for him, and he sits at home watching everything that's going on.
Okay.
So in this series, that's kind of what they do. Every week they're investigating maybe a different case, but always working on trying to figure out who the Bone Collector is. When I say it's kind of this tip of the hat to Sherlock, Lincoln Rhyme is supposed to be this super smart, really know-it-all type detective. So when someone's like, well, we've got this residue that was, Freon from a place of this, he starts to, you can see him thinking, and he's picking out all these images from his head of going, well, in 1837, Freon was used for this person, and Samuel did this, and like he just kind of knows the history of, especially New York, and how everything points to certain things. It's just one of those sorts of, so
Sure.
It feels a little Sherlocky with that sort of thing.
Yep, got it.
Anyway, this was a Friday night show. I fell in love with it. It's kind of my thing, but it's also because of really Russell Hornsby. Like I said, the chick in the show, she's been on a lot of other shows that I've watched. I've never really liked her. I don't know if they give her bad lines or if she just makes the lines feel bad, but she pulls me away from what I feel like overall is a pretty decent show. So I don't know if it's her delivery or if they're like, well, let's just give her this stupid line to say. There's something around her that I'm not a fan of, but I really love the mystery of it all. And really, and the guy who plays the Bone Collector is Brian F. O'Byrne, who people will know. He's just a great actor. He's super smart in this and creepy, and is a good kind of head to head with Russell Hornsby, and so those two come together. And so they called this show Lincoln Rhyme: The Hunt for the Bone Collector. So we got the Bone Collector in this final episode, and then a new thing popped up at the end, a new killer that's now challenging him. So if this gets picked up, which I don't know if it is, it's a Friday night show. Is NBC gonna, put in for it again? But now the next one could be called Lincoln Rhyme, blah, 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 whatever. So that's how they can keep the series going if they want to. I hope they do. I thought it was really well done. I loved all the unrealistic science, because he's got a scientist, he's got a hacker on his team, he's got all these people, they're all working out of his apartment. He has a woman that cares for him who's an agoraphobic, so she can't leave. And there's just all these cool little personalities. And of course, it's always like, oh, give that to her. And she puts it in her little machine. And then she's like, oh, this is cement from 1923 from, 57th Street, or it's like all unrealistic crap, right? No one can really do that in truth, but I love that stuff. It's just fun to watch and love to see all the puzzle pieces come together and how they figure it out. So
it does sound very Sherlock.
Yeah, it's just it's perfect for Friday night, in my opinion. It was just on at 8:00 or whatever, and so it was just like and last night, honestly, it was a 2-hour finale, so I stayed up until 10:00. I was like, I'm not gonna wait for this for tomorrow. I want to see this and see it out. So I enjoyed it. If you like that sort of thing, if anyone's ever read the books, I'm sure it's not as good as books or whatever, but I really enjoyed it. I think it'd be worth going back and watching. So.
Way to sell it.
Well, no one ever thinks anything's as good as the books, No one ever thinks the movies are good or whatever.
Oh,
so.
Most things aren't, but yeah.
I wouldn't know. I don't read.
You do. Oh, Danny can't read.
I can. I choose not to.
You choose not to. Okay.
It's a choice.
Okay.
It's a life choice.
All right.
They'll make it into a show.
Okay. And you're right. Nowadays they are.
That's right. So. Yeah. So that is everything I have for television.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, we didn't do an actor's corner for this because...
Yeah, we did that in part 1, so you can go back and listen to Charlize
Theron. That's right. This is part... Yeah. I just like to do that.
I know. That's it. I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
I'm tired of talking.
I'm hungry and confused, so let's be done.
All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging in there, for listening. I hope you got some good ideas of things to go and watch.
I just hope you were entertained.
Yeah, I don't know if this was very entertaining.
Oh, I found parts of it entertaining.
You did?
I laugh.
You laugh at everything.
Okay,
we're stringing this out.
Sorry.
We're stringing it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Too much
Thanks,
drugs.
you guys, for listening. We will be back in 2 weeks, and we hope you all stay safe, social distancing, wash your hands, and stay home.
Yep.
All right. That's it. Until next time, I'll be watching my stories.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.